The stars had never looked so. It's beautiful to Park Tae-ho. He stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge, watching the endless darkness stretch before him. Behind him, the blue marble of Earth grew smaller with each passing hour. He was 53 years old, a man who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Humanity's first ambassador to the stars, Captain Kang Yuna, walked up beside him. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a military posture that never relaxed. At 41, she had already commanded 3 deep space missions. But this one was different. This was first contact. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "we will reach Velthus Prime in 6 hours." Tae-ho nodded slowly. "Are you nervous, Captain?" Yuna considered the question. "I am prepared." "That is not the same thing." Tae-ho smiled gently. "I am terrified, but I am also hopeful. We are about to meet beings who have traveled the stars for thousands of years. Think of what we could learn. Think of what we could become." The Galactic Council had made contact with Earth 3 years ago. A simple message, broadcast from a probe that appeared near Jupiter. The message was cold and formal. It informed humanity that they had been observed, that their recent development of faster-than-light travel had been noted, and that they were invited to send a representative to discuss their place in galactic society. Some on Earth celebrated. Others feared. But eventually, the world agreed on one thing. They would send their best. They would send Park Tae-ho. Dr. Baekwon, the ship's chief scientist, joined them at the window. He was younger than both of them, barely 35, with the excited energy of a man living his dream. "I have been studying their language patterns," he said. "Fascinating. They use 17 different forms of formal address based on species hierarchy. And where do humans fall in this hierarchy?" Wuna asked. Juan hesitated. "At the bottom, Captain. We are the newest species. The youngest. To them, we are children." Tae-ho turned from the window. "Then we will show them that children can grow." 6 hours later, the Horizon's Edge dropped out of light speed near Velthos Prime. The station was enormous, larger than any structure humanity had ever built. It hung in space like a metal flower, its petals stretching outward to dock thousands of ships from across the galaxy. Lights blinked in patterns that seemed almost alive. Yuna guided the ship toward the designated docking port. Around them, alien vessels of every shape and size moved through space. Some were sleek and elegant. Others were massive and brutal. All of them ignored the small human ship as if it were an insect, receiving docking instructions, Juan reported. "They are directing us to port 7749, that is." "The lowest level of the station?" "The servant's entrance," Yuna muttered. Tae-ho placed a hand on her shoulder. "It does not matter where we enter. It matters what we do once we are inside." The docking was smooth. The airlock hissed open, and Tae-ho stepped onto the station with his small delegation. 12 humans in total. Diplomats, scientists, translators, and 2 security officers. They carried no weapons. This was a mission of peace. A creature waited for them in the corridor. It was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, the translator device in Tae-ho's ear converted the sounds into flat, emotionless words. "I am Coordinator Velnus of the Molvari. You will follow me. You will not speak unless addressed. You will not touch anything. You will not look directly at any member of the tribunal. Is this understood?" Tae-ho bowed his head slightly. "We understand. We are grateful for this opportunity." Velnus made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Gratitude is appropriate. Your species is fortunate to be acknowledged at all." They walked through the station for nearly an hour. The corridors were filled with aliens of every description. Some walked on 2 legs, some on 4, some on none at all. They floated, crawled, and slithered past the humans without a second glance. Tae-ho noticed that many of them made gestures of respect when Molvari passed, showed nothing when humans walked by. Finally, they reached the grand chamber. It was a massive circular room, rising hundreds of meters into the air. Seats lined the walls in tiers, filled with thousands of alien representatives. At the center, On a raised platform sat the Tribunal of Elders. 7 beings, each from a different founding species of the Council. Taiho was led to a small circle on the floor. Far below the Tribunal's platform, he had to look up to see them. This was intentional, he knew. Everything here was designed to make humans feel small. "You may speak," one of the Tribunal members announced. It was a massive creature, covered in scales the color of old blood. "State your purpose." "Honored members of the Tribunal, I am Park Taiho, Ambassador of Earth. I come in peace, representing the 8 billion humans of my world. We seek friendship. We seek knowledge. We seek to take our place among the stars as partners and allies." Silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, laughter began. It started with a few aliens in the lower seats, then spread upward until the entire room echoed with the sound of mocking amusement. The scaled Tribunal member raised one massive hand. The laughter stopped. "Partners? Allies? Your species has existed for barely a moment. You have had lightspeed travel for 3 of your years. We have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. You are not partners. You are not allies. You are tolerated. For now." Taiho remained calm. "We understand that we are young, but we learn quickly. We wish only to grow alongside you, to contribute what we can." Another Tribunal member spoke. This one was a Fendrati, a creature of pure light contained within a crystal shell. Its voice chimed like breaking glass. "We have observed your species. You are violent, aggressive. You destroy your own world and kill your own kind. What could such creatures possibly contribute?" "Change," Taiho said simply. "We can change. We have already begun. Our world is more united now than ever in our history. We have come together for this moment. Give us a chance." The Tribunal members exchanged glances. The scaled one leaned forward. "We will deliberate. You will wait." For 3 days, Taiho and his delegation waited. They were given small rooms with no windows. Their food was bland and barely enough. They were not permitted to explore the station or speak with other species. They were prisoners in all but name. On the 4th day, Coordinator Velness came for them. "The Tribunal has reached a decision. You will come." They were led back to the Grand Chamber. But this time something was different. The room was fuller than before. Every seat was occupied. Recording devices floated in the air, capturing everything. The scaled Tribunal member rose to its full height. "Park Taiho of Earth, you have been found guilty of espionage against the Galactic Council. The evidence is clear. You came here not for peace, but to steal our secrets." Taiho's blood ran cold. "That is not true. We came only for peace. We have no interest in your secrets." Silence. The word echoed through the chamber. "The sentence for espionage is death. The sentence will be carried out immediately." Before Taiho could move, energy beams struck him from every direction. He did not scream. He did not beg. He simply looked toward his delegation, toward Captain Yuna, and mouthed a single word. "Run." Then Park Taiho, humanity's first ambassador to the stars, was gone. Nothing remained but ash floating in the air. Yuna did not freeze. She grabbed Juan and the others and ran. Behind them, guards gave chase. Alarms filled the station. But Yuna knew these corridors now. She had memorized every step of their journey. They reached the horizon's edge. The ship's engines were already warm. Yuna threw herself into the captain's chair and launched before the docking clamps could fully engage. The ship tore free, leaving metal and fire behind. As they fled into the darkness of space, Yuna opened a channel to Earth. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with something that would terrify the galaxy. They killed him. They killed all of them. And they laughed. The horizon's edge limped through space for 3 weeks. Its hull was damaged. Its engines were failing. Half the systems were dead. But Captain Kang Yuna refused to stop. She pushed the ship beyond its limits, beyond what the engineers said was possible. She had to reach Earth. She had to show them what happened when the blue planet finally appeared on her screens, Yuna allowed herself to breathe for the first time since fleeing Velthus Prime. Behind her, Dr. Bequan worked at his console, preserving every piece of footage they had captured. The execution, the laughter, the faces of those who had murdered Park Taiho. "We are being hailed by Earth Command," Juan said quietly. "They want to know our status." Yuna opened the channel. Her voice was hollow. "This is Captain Kong Yuna of the Horizon's Edge. Ambassador Park Taiho is dead. The diplomatic team is dead. Only 7 of us survived. I am carrying evidence of murder by the Galactic Council. I request immediate landing and emergency session with the World Council." The response came quickly. Too quickly. The whole world had been watching, hoping, waiting for news of their ambassador. And now this. "Horizon's Edge, you are cleared for priority landing at Seoul Spaceport. Emergency medical and security teams are standing by. The World Council has been notified." Yuna landed the ship 2 hours later. The spaceport was surrounded by thousands of people. They had gathered in silence, holding candles, holding photos of Ambassador Taiho. They already knew. The news had spread faster than light. Their ambassador was dead. Their hope for peace was ashes. The World Council met within hours. Leaders from every nation sat in the Great Chamber in Geneva. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists. They watched in silence as Yuna stood before them, her uniform torn, her face pale. "Play the footage," President Moon Jae-woo said. He was an older man, with gray hair and tired eyes. But those eyes held something deeper now. Something cold. The screens came alive. The Grand Chamber of Velthus Prime appeared. Ambassador Taiho stood in the center, small and alone. The tribunal members looked down at him like gods judging an insect. The words were translated in real time. "Guilty of espionage. Sentence is death." Then the energy beams. Then the ash. Then the laughter. The World Council watched in complete silence. When the footage ended, no one spoke. The silence stretched for minutes. Then President Jae-woo stood. "Is there any possibility this was a mistake? A misunderstanding?" Yuna shook her head. "No, sir. They planned this from the beginning. The charges were false. There was no evidence because there was no crime. They killed him because they could. Because they wanted to send a message. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans are nothing." Foreign Secretary Lee Hanna spoke next. Her voice trembled with barely controlled rage. "Have they communicated with us since the incident?" "Yes," Yuna replied. "We received a message while in transit. I saved it." She played the message. A Mulvari voice filled the chamber, cold and arrogant. "To the primitive species of Earth, you have witnessed the justice of the Galactic Council. Your envoy was a spy and a criminal. His death was lawful. Any attempt at retaliation will result in the complete destruction of your species. Know your place. You are insects beneath our consideration. This matter is closed." The message ended. President Jae-woo closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, they were different. The tiredness was gone. Something else had taken its place. "Director Choi Nari," he said, "please step forward." A woman rose from the back of the chamber. She was small and slight, with sharp features and eyes like black ice. Director Choi Nari was the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Research Division. Her work was classified at the highest levels. Even most world leaders did not know what she was truly capable of. Director President Jae-woo continued. "Is Project Silence ready?" Nari smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "It has been ready for 2 years, sir. We were simply waiting for permission." "And what exactly is Project Silence?" "Weapons, Mr. President. Weapons based on theoretical physics that the Council believes impossible. Weapons that can tear holes in space-time itself. Weapons that can destroy fleets, stations, and planets. The Council thinks they are gods. Project Silence will teach them otherwise." A murmur spread through the chamber. Admiral Shin Do-yan, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Fleet, stood from his seat. He was a legend in military circles. 3 decades of service. Countless impossible victories. They called him the Iron Admiral. Mr. President, Doyan said, his voice calm and measured. If we go to war, it must be total. The Council has 42 member species. They have ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Their resources are beyond anything we can imagine. If we strike, we cannot hold back. There can be no half measures. President Jae-woo nodded slowly. What do you propose, Admiral? Operation Reckoning. Doyan walked to the center of the chamber. A holographic map of the galaxy appeared around him. We do not fight for territory. We do not fight for resources. We fight for one purpose only: to erase every species that supported Taiho's murder, to destroy the Council so completely that no one will ever again dare to harm a human. The chamber fell silent again. Then, one by one, the leaders began to stand. First Japan, then Germany, then Brazil, Nigeria, India, Australia. Every nation, every leader. They stood in unified silence. President Jae-woo looked around the room. It seems we are agreed. Admiral Doyan, you have full authority. Director Nari, begin production immediately. Captain Yuna, you are promoted to Rear Admiral. You will lead our Vanguard fleet. Yuna straightened. Yes, sir. One more thing. President Jae-woo walked to the main podium. Cameras activated around the world. Every screen on Earth lit up with his face. 8 billion people watched. Citizens of Earth, he began. Today we learned that the universe is not kind. We reached out in friendship, and our hand was burned. We sent our best, our brightest, our most hopeful. And they were slaughtered like animals for the amusement of aliens who see us as insects. He paused. His voice grew harder. They wanted to teach us fear. They wanted to show us that we are small, weak, and alone. But they made a mistake. They forgot what humans do when pushed. We do not break. We do not bend. We rise, we adapt, we overcome, and we destroy those who threaten us. From this moment forward, Earth is at war. Not a war for land. Not a war for power. A war for survival. A war for justice. A war for the memory of Park Taiho and every soul lost at Velthus Prime. To the Galactic Council, I say this. You wanted to see what humanity truly is? You wanted to test us? Congratulations. You have awakened something that should have been left sleeping. We are coming, and when we arrive, you will learn why humans are feared. They killed one of us. We will kill all of them. The broadcast ended. Around the world, people did not cheer. They did not cry. They simply nodded and went to work. Factories that had been idle roared to life. Shipyards that had been building exploration vessels now built warships. Scientists who had been studying the stars now designed weapons. Soldiers who had been peacekeepers now trained for extermination in his office. Admiral Doyan studied the holographic map of Council space. 42 species. Thousands of worlds. Millions of ships. The odds were impossible. But Admiral Dojan had built his career on impossible odds. They think we are insects, he murmured to himself. They will learn that even insects can bring down giants. He pressed a button on his console. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Doyan. Mobilization begins immediately. Production schedule is accelerated to maximum. Training protocols are doubled. We move in 18 months. He paused, looking at a photo on his desk. It was Park Taiho, smiling, shaking hands with Doyan on the day the mission launched. We are coming, old friend, Doyan whispered, and we will bring hell with us. 18 months passed. In the darkness between stars, far from any council sensor network, humanity's fleet assembled. Admiral Shin Doyan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Wrath of Earth, and watched the numbers climb on his display. 1,000 ships. 2,000. 5,000. 10,000. 10,000 warships. More than any species had built in centuries. Each one was armed with weapons the Council had never seen. Each one was crewed by humans who had lost someone who had grieved, who had turned their tears into steel. Rear Admiral Kang Yuna entered the bridge. She was different now. The hopeful officer who had escorted Ambassador Taiho to his death was gone. In her place stood something harder, something forged in fire. "The Vanguard fleet is ready, Admiral," she reported. 1,200 ships. All crews are at combat stations. Doyen nodded. "And the Void Lances?" "Installed on every capital ship." Director Nari personally inspected each one. The Void Lance, humanity's secret weapon. A device that could tear holes in the fabric of space-time itself. When activated, it created a sphere of absolute destruction. Everything inside that sphere simply ceased to exist. Ships, stations, moons, anything. Gone in an instant. The Council had deemed such technology impossible. Their scientists had written papers explaining why space-time manipulation on that scale could never be achieved. They were wrong. Humanity had achieved it in 18 months. Dr. Han Yunbi had led the engineering team. She was the one who had solved the final equations, who had made the impossible possible. Now she sat in her laboratory aboard the Wrath of Earth, running final diagnostics on the flagship's main weapon. "Power levels are stable," she reported through the comm system. "The Void Lance is ready." In another part of the fleet, Lieutenant Beak Sora climbed into the cockpit of her fighter. She was 28 years old, small and fierce, with eyes that burned with cold fire. Captain Yuna was her older sister. She had watched the footage of Taiho's execution over 500 times. She had memorized every face in that chamber. Every alien who had laughed, her squadron leader, Commander Anjuan, appeared on her screen. "Ready, Lieutenant?" "I have been ready for 18 months, Commander." "Good. Remember your training. Remember why we are here?" Sora touched a photo taped to her console. It showed her family years ago. Her parents, her sister Yuna, and herself. Happy, innocent. That world was gone now. "I remember," she said quietly. "I will never forget." On the ground forces transport vessel, General Ominho reviewed his invasion plans. They called him the Ghost because of his tactics. His forces appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before the enemy could respond. He had won 14 wars on Earth before the unification. Now he would win humanity's first war among the stars. His forces numbered 2 million soldiers. Every one of them was a volunteer. Every one of them had signed up knowing they might never return. When recruitment opened, 50 million applied. Minho had chosen the best. "General," his aide said, "intelligence reports the Mulveri have increased patrols near their homeworld. They may suspect something." Minho smiled thinly. "Let them suspect. By the time they understand what is coming, it will be too late." Back on the Wrath of Earth, Admiral Doyon called a final meeting of his commanders. They gathered in the war room, holographic displays showing the targets: Mulvos, the Mulveri homeworld; Velthus Prime, the Council headquarters; Fendrati Prime, home of the crystal beings who had mocked humanity; and 40 more worlds beyond. "In 6 hours, we jump," Doyen said. "Our first strike will be simultaneous. 300 ships will hit Mulvos. 300 will hit Velthus Prime. 200 will hit Fendrati Prime. The rest will spread across Council space, attacking military installations and communication networks." He looked at each commander in turn. His voice was hard as iron. "There will be no negotiations. There will be no warnings. There will be no mercy. We strike first, we strike hard, and we do not stop until the Council exists only in history books. Is this understood?" "Yes, Admiral," they answered as one. "Good return to your ships. Prepare your crews, and remember what brought us here." As the commanders left, Yuna remained. She stood at the viewport, looking out at the assembled fleet. So many ships, so much power, all of it born from grief. "Are you ready?" Doyen asked, walking to stand beside her. "I have thought about this moment every day since Velthus Prime," Yuna replied. "I have imagined the tribunal's faces when they see us coming, when they realize that the insects have teeth, and now that the moment is here." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. "I feel nothing, Admiral. No joy, no fear, just a cold certainty that this must be done. They showed us no mercy. We will show them the same. Adon nodded slowly. That is exactly what we need. Cold certainty. The fury will come later, in battle. But now, we need ice in our veins. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council continued, as if nothing had changed. The tribunal met in their grand chamber, discussing trade agreements and border disputes. The murder of the human envoy had been forgotten. Just another minor incident in their ancient history. Coordinator Velnus presented his report on human activity. Our sensors detect no unusual movement from Earth. Their fleet remains in their home system. They appear to be focused on internal matters. As predicted, they have accepted their place. The scaled tribunal member made a sound of satisfaction. Of course they have. Lesser species always learn eventually. The universe belongs to the strong. Humans are weak. They will serve us or they will be destroyed. There is no third option. The Fenderati representative flickered with amusement. Perhaps we should have kept some of them as specimens. They are quite fascinating in their primitiveness. Laughter echoed through the chamber. The same laughter that had followed Taiho's death. They did not know that human spies walked among them. Agents who had undergone genetic modification to appear as council species. Agents who had spent 18 months gathering intelligence, mapping defenses, identifying weaknesses. Agents who now received a single coded transmission from Earth. The word was simple. Reckoning. In the darkness between stars, Admiral Doyon gave the order. All ships prepare for lightspeed jump. Destination. Council space. May God have mercy on them because we will not. 10,000 ships activated their drives simultaneously. The flash of light was visible from 100 light-years away. A wave of destruction, moving faster than any message could warn. Heading straight for the heart of the Galactic Council, on the bridge of the wrath of Earth. Doyon spoke one final time before the jump, for Ambassador Park Taiho, for Earth, for humanity. And then they were gone. The journey took 4 hours. 4 hours of silence, 4 hours of final preparations, 4 hours for crews to make peace with what they were about to do. When the fleet emerged from lightspeed, they were positioned perfectly. Molvos hung before them, blue and green, covered in cities and orbital stations. A beautiful world, home to 3 billion Molvarai in 18 hours. It would be ashes. Admiral Doyon opened a channel to the entire fleet. His voice was calm, steady, and utterly without mercy. All ships, you have your orders. No mercy. No negotiation. Only silence. Begin the attack. Cross-council space. Humanity struck. The war had begun. The Molvari had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 8,000 years. They had built an empire of 300 worlds. Their fleet numbered 15,000 warships. They believed themselves untouchable. They were wrong. When the human fleet emerged from lightspeed, the Molvari defense systems barely had time to activate. Admiral Doyon gave a simple order. Void lances. Fire. Reality tore apart. Spheres of absolute nothing appeared in the middle of the Molvari fleet. Ships vanished. Carriers, battleships, destroyers, all gone in an instant. No explosions, no debris. Just absence. Where 12,000 ships had been, there was now only empty space. The remaining 3,000 ships tried to flee. Human fighters, smaller and faster, cut them off. Lieutenant Beak Sora led her squadron into the heart of the chaos. Her fingers danced across the controls as she dodged enemy fire and returned it tenfold. Squadron 7, follow me, she commanded. We have a carrier group at Vector 9. They are trying to escape. They do not escape. Her squadron followed her into hell. Sora flew like nothing the Molvari had ever seen. She moved between their ships like a ghost, her weapons finding weak points that their own engineers had forgotten. In 20 minutes, her squadron destroyed 47 ships. Her personal count, 19, the pilots started calling her Death Blossom. She did not smile at the name. On Molvos, the population watched the sky in horror. The defense fleet that had protected them for generations was simply gone. Now human ships descended through the atmosphere. Landing craft fell like rain. General Ominho led the ground invasion personally. His forces landed in 12 locations simultaneously, surrounding the capital city of Molvos Prime. The Mulveri army tried to organize a defense, but Minho was faster. Always faster. Strike Teams Alpha through Delta. Secure the government district, he ordered. Teams Echo through Hotel. Disable their communication towers. Everyone else, establish the perimeter. No one leaves the city. The Mulvari soldiers fought bravely. They had never faced an enemy on their own soil before, but they did not run. They stood their ground and died where they stood. Human weapons were simply better. Human tactics were simply sharper. And human soldiers had something the Mulvari did not: rage. Within 72 hours, Molvos fell. The government surrendered, offering anything for peace. Territory, resources, slaves. They would give humanity whatever they wanted. General Minho stood before the Mulveri leaders in their own council chamber. His face was stone. His voice was ice. "You do not understand," he said slowly. "We are not here for territory. We are not here for resources. We are here because your species helped murder Ambassador Park Tai-ho. We are here for justice. And justice, in this case, means extinction." The Mulvari leaders screamed. They begged. They pleaded for mercy. Minho simply nodded to his soldiers. There would be no mercy. There never was. While Molvos burned, Rear Admiral Yuna led her fleet against Velthus Prime. The council headquarters was defended by the combined fleets of 20 species. Over 50,000 ships formed a wall around the station. It was the greatest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Yuna looked at the numbers and smiled coldly. "All ships, activate void lances. Fire, at will." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Velthus Prime hung alone in space, undefended. The greatest fleet in history was nothing but memory. Yuna docked her flagship at the station and walked through the same corridors where she had once escorted Ambassador Tai-ho. She reached the Grand Chamber. The Tribunal of Elders remained on their platform, frozen with fear. They had never imagined this was possible. They had ruled for 12,000 years. They were gods. How could insects defeat gods? Yuna stood where Tai-ho had stood. She looked up at them, just as he had looked up. 18 months ago, she said, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. "You murdered a man who came in peace? You executed him on false charges. And then you laughed." The scaled tribunal member tried to speak. "This is madness. We can negotiate. We can offer I did not give you permission to speak." Yuna raised her hand. On every screen in the station, the footage of Tai-ho's execution began to play. The same footage that had haunted her dreams for 18 months. She let it play through to the laughter at the end. "That is what you thought of humanity," she continued. "You thought we were insects? You thought we would accept our place. You were wrong." She pressed a button on her communicator. "Begin broadcast." Across the galaxy, every council species received the same transmission. Yuna's face appeared on billions of screens. "This is Rear Admiral Kang Yuna of the Earth Fleet. The Galactic Council is dissolved. The Tribunal of Elders will face justice for their crimes against humanity. Any species that surrenders immediately will be shown mercy. Any species that resists will share the fate of the Mulveri." The broadcast ended. Yuna turned back to the tribunal. "Now, you have something to say to the galaxy." One by one, the tribunal members were forced to confess. They admitted the charges against Tai-ho were false. They admitted they had wanted to make an example of humanity. They admitted they had underestimated the species they called insects. When the confessions were complete, Yuna gave another order. "Execute them." The Tribunal of Elders died where they had ruled for millennia. Their bodies fell from the great platform and crashed on the floor of the chamber. Yuna watched without expression. "For Ambassador Tai-ho," she said quietly, "and for humanity," as the war spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had supported the council fell one by one. The Fendrati were hunted to near extinction. Their crystal cities shattered under human weapons. The light beings inside screamed as they died. Their screams broadcast across space as a warning. Some species tried to surrender immediately. They had not participated in Taiho's murder. They had simply been members of the council, doing as they were told. They pleaded for understanding. Admiral Doyan was not without mercy. He allowed those who surrendered quickly to live under strict conditions. They would disarm completely. They would pay reparations to Earth. They would never again threaten a human being. Those who agreed were spared. Those who hesitated were not. Lieutenant Sora earned her reputation in the Finrati campaign. Her squadron destroyed 3 carrier groups and 14 orbital defense platforms. She flew missions that should have been suicide and returned every time. Her wingmate said she was touched by death itself. After one particularly brutal battle, her squadron leader asked her how she stayed so calm. "I am not calm," Sora replied. "I am empty. They killed my hope when they killed Taiho. All that remains is the mission." On Earth, President Jay-Woo received updates every hour. He watched the map of the galaxy change color, blue for human control, spreading like a tide across the stars. He should have felt triumph. Instead, he felt only weariness. Director Nari appeared in his office one evening. "The war is going well, Mr. President. Better than projected." Forever certain, word SS7. Jay-Woo looked out his window at the night sky. "We are becoming what they feared. Monsters. Destroyers. We are doing what is necessary. That is what monsters always say." Jay-Woo sighed. "But you are right. It is necessary. We cannot show weakness now. We must finish what we started." Nari nodded and left. Jay-Woo remained at the window for hours, watching the stars and wondering what humanity would become when this was over. In council space, the last resistance crumbled. Species that had ruled for thousands of years were reduced to scattered refugees. The great stations were captured or destroyed. The trade routes fell silent. The galaxy that had mocked humanity now trembled before them. Admiral Doyan stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth and watched the final battles unfold. His face showed nothing, but inside, something stirred. Something that might have been satisfaction or might have been grief. "Admiral," his aide reported, "we have received a transmission from the remaining council species. They are begging for peace. Complete surrender. They will accept any terms." Doyan was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Forward the message to President Jay-Woo. This decision is above my authority." He paused, looking at the stars. "But if he asks my opinion, tell him this. They showed us who they were. We showed them who we are. There is nothing more to discuss." 2 years after the first shot was fired, the war ended. Not with a treaty, not with negotiations, simply with silence. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for 12,000 years, no longer existed. Its member species were scattered, broken, and humbled. The great stations were abandoned or converted to human use. The mighty fleets were scrap metal floating in the SE void. Humanity had won. Admiral Shindoyan returned to Earth aboard the Wrath of Earth. The ship that had led humanity's vengeance descended through the atmosphere and landed at Seoul Spaceport, the same place where Captain Yuna had first delivered news of Ambassador Taiho's death. Millions gathered to watch. The world held its breath. Doyan walked down the landing ramp slowly. He was older now, his hair completely gray, his face lined with exhaustion. The weight of what he had done pressed on him like a mountain. He had destroyed civilizations. He had ended species. He had made humanity the most feared force in the galaxy. President Jae-woo waited at the bottom of the ramp. Behind him stood the leaders of every nation on Earth. Medals and honors were prepared. Speeches had been written. Doyan stopped before the president and saluted. "The mission is complete, sir. The council is no more. Humanity is safe." Jae-woo returned the salute. "Admiral, on behalf of a grateful planet, I offer you with respect, Mr. President," Dojan interrupted quietly. "I request permission to retire. Immediately. I have done what was necessary. I do not wish to be celebrated for it." A murmur went through the crowd. Jae-woo studied the old admiral's face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Permission granted, Admiral. Your service will never be forgotten." Doyan turned to address the crowd. His voice was tired but steady. He did what had to be done. "I will not celebrate it. I only hope that our children will never have to do the same." He walked away without looking back. The medals and honors were never presented. Doyan spent his remaining years in a small house by the sea, watching the waves and rarely speaking. Some said he was haunted by the ghosts of those he had killed. Others said he had simply found peace. The truth was known only to him. Rear Admiral Kang Yuna returned to Earth a hero. She was offered every position imaginable. Fleet Commander, Defense Minister, even President. She refused them all. Instead, she asked for one thing: a small ship and permission to visit the site where Velthus Prime had once stood. The council headquarters had been destroyed in the final days of the war. A human bombardment had reduced the great station to atoms. Nothing remained but empty space and scattered debris. Yuna stood at the viewport of her small ship, looking at the nothing. She had carried a single white chrysanthemum for this moment. Taiho's favorite flower. She released it into the airlock and watched as it drifted away into the void. "I kept my promise, Taiho," she whispered. "They paid for what they did. All of them." She remained there for hours, alone with her memories. When she finally returned to Earth, she took command of a training academy for young officers. She was strict but fair, and she made sure every student knew the story of Ambassador Park Taiho, the man who died for peace. In the war that followed, Lieutenant Beak Sora, now Captain Sora, did not return to Earth. She remained in space, commanding a patrol fleet on the edge of former Council territory. Her reputation had become legend. Death Blossom, the pilot who could not be killed, who destroyed more enemy ships than any other single fighter. Aliens whispered her name in fear. She preferred it that way. Her patrols were routine now. No species dared challenge human authority. The war was over, but its shadow remained. Every alien who saw a human ship remembered what had happened. What could happen again? One day, Sora's fleet encountered a refugee convoy. Survivors of a species that had been nearly destroyed in the war. Their ships were damaged, their people starving. They signaled surrender and begged for mercy. Sora studied them for a long moment. Then she ordered her fleet to escort them to a human relief station. Food, medicine, and temporary shelter were provided. The refugees wept with gratitude and confusion. "Why are you helping us?" their leader asked. "After everything?" Sora looked at him with empty eyes. "Because the war is over. We destroyed those who wronged us. You are not among them. Humanity is harsh, but we are not cruel without cause." She left without waiting for a response. Behind her, the refugees watched her ship disappear into the stars. They would tell stories of that day for generations. The human who could have killed them, but chose mercy instead. Director Choi Nari continued her work. The war was over, but she knew better than to believe in permanent peace. Her laboratories developed new weapons, new defenses, new technologies. If another threat emerged from beyond the known galaxy, humanity would be ready. She never smiled. She never celebrated. She simply worked, day after day, preparing for a future that might never come. Some called her paranoid. She called herself practical. President Jae-woo served 2 more terms before retiring. In his final address, he spoke about the war and its lessons. "We were forced to become destroyers to survive," he said. "We showed the galaxy that humanity will not accept subjugation, will not accept murder, will not accept being treated as lesser beings. But we must remember that victory is not the same as virtue. We did terrible things. Necessary things, perhaps, but terrible nonetheless. Let us never forget the cost. Let us never become what we destroyed. The galaxy reorganized itself around a new reality. Humanity did not seek to rule directly. Instead, they established the Terran Dominion, a loose authority that maintained order across former council space. The rules were simple: trade fairly, resolve disputes peacefully, and never ever harm a human being. The punishment for breaking that final rule was not death. It was extinction. Some alien species adapted to the new order. They traded with humanity, learned from humanity, even began to admire humanity. A few generations later, they could barely remember a time before humans ruled the stars.